in the hours after the deadly shooting.
This one taking the lives of 10 people.
I think so, and it was like a trophy thing. It was disgusting, but it was kind of a power trip.
To reveal this, a white t-shirt with the word killer.
Brenda was only 16 when she opened fire at her school, killing 8 of her own classmates. Here are 10 brutal teenage mass murderers who confessed on camera. Number 10. Edmund Kemper.
I told the police, they asked me how many people I thought I could have killed in the fashion that I did out of the approximately 1,000 individuals who got in my car over a 3-year period that I was out there.
August 27, 1964. After a heated argument with his grandmother, 15-year-old Edmund Kemper returned with a hunting rifle and coldly shot her in the head and back. His grandfather, Edmund Emil Kemper, met the same fate in their driveway upon his return. Kemper's confession revealed his disturbing motives: curiosity about taking a life and a desire to spare his grandfather from discovering his wife's death. Diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, he was confined to a Tuscadero State Hospital, where he surprisingly became a model prisoner, assisting with psychiatric tests for inmates. However, upon his release in 1969, Kemper's story took a horrifying and unexpected turn. September 1972. Kemper abducted Laiko Ku while she hitchhiked, assaulted and murdered her, and then did very inappropriate things with her corpse and dismembered her remains.
It was random, and it was also the development of the passion. If I was drove, they died, like the last 2 victims. I was so pissed I'd have killed anybody that got in the car.
February 1973. Rosa Lynn Thorpe and Allison Liu fell victim to his heinous crimes. He didn't stop at killing. He decapitated, sexually assaulted their corpses, and desecrated their bodies.
Like a trophy thing. It was, it's disgusting, but it was kind of a power trip. I always felt intimidated by women. I always felt overpowered by them as a kid.
And can you believe his own mother wasn't safe from his wrath? April 1973, after brutally ending her life with a claw hammer and penknife, he committed unspeakable acts on her corpse. He beheaded her, humiliated her corpse by throwing darts at it, and ultimately smashed her face in. And that's not all. He also cut out her tongue and larynx and put them in a garbage disposal. To further his chilling narrative, he lured his mother's best friend, 59-year-old Sarah Sally Hallett, to her doom, where he fatally strangled her and left a note to mislead the police. May 7, 1973, Kemper was indicted, and his trial was nothing short of intense. Facing 8 counts of first-degree murder, his detailed confessions painted a gruesome picture. Despite his plea of insanity, court-appointed psychiatrists deemed him sane, and the jury found him guilty on all charges. Though Kemper desired the death penalty, he found himself serving 7 life sentences for each count, without any possibility of parole, at the California Medical Facility in Vacaville. Number 9. Sean Sellers.
In the room before and pointed it at my father's head, and I squeezed the trigger. Emotions full of anger, and if you've never felt evil, there's no way that you can understand it.
March 5th, 1986, in the dead of night, while his mother, Vonda Bellafato, and his stepfather, Lee Bellafato, peacefully slept, Sellers committed an unimaginable act. He approached Lee and immediately shot him, which startled his mother. Without hesitation, Sellers aimed his weapon and brutally shot her in the face. The cold-heartedness of his actions is truly difficult to fathom. But Sellers' crimes didn't stop there. In what seems almost unreal, he confessed to another murder, that of a 32-year-old store clerk who had refused to sell him alcohol. The motive was petty, painting Sellers as a troubled individual. He claimed to be influenced by Satanism, and even asserted he was possessed by a demon during the killings. However, these claims were met with skepticism and dismissed as absurd. Born May 18, 1969, he's infamous for a chilling crime that sent shockwaves across the nation. Now here's the thing about Sean. He committed this heinous act between 15 and 16 years old. That's right, you heard right, a young guy, with his actions being anything but innocent teenage stuff. And what sets his case apart isn't the sheer brutality of it all, but also the controversies it stirred up. It's a story that got people talking for a long time. So here's the deal with Sean Sellers. He tried pulling the old insanity card and later went with the multiple personality disorder angle in court, but the judges weren't buying it. It's a bit of a head-scratcher, really. You see, Sellers went to great lengths to meticulously stage those crime scenes, which kinda went against the whole troubled mind storyline. In the end, all of his efforts to dodge the conviction didn't pay off. He got hit with a guilty verdict for multiple homicides, and in 1986, that landed him a death sentence. Tough break for him, to say the least. In a twist no one saw coming, Sellers' story took a turn while in prison. He embraced Christianity and became an active advocate for faith-based life. Now, this transformation led to appearances on shows like The Oprah Winfrey Show and in documentaries on serial killers and Satanism. From dark to light, his journey was truly unexpected.
I had the first peaceful night's sleep that I'd had in a year and a half. I'd been having these dreams, sick dreams of blood and sex and all this other stuff. And that night there were no dreams, there were just peaceful night's sleep.
In 1995, he even married, although the marriage was annulled just 2 years later. Sellers' appeals continued, but none succeeded. It was a long legal battle. February 4th, 1999, despite criticism and condemnation from various quarters, including Human Rights Watch and the European Union, Sellers was executed by lethal injection. Number 8. Nehemiah Griego.
I'm sorry for taking our parents and our sins. I wish I could take it back. Reality is that we can't.
January 19th, 2013, around midnight. With no apparent emotion, Nehemiah took a .22 caliber rifle and coldly shot his mother, who was in her 40s. Now there's more to this chilling story. His brother Zephaniah woke up to this horrifying scene of their mother's death. But instead of finding comfort in his older brother, he was met with the most heart-wrenching betrayal. Nehemiah turned the gun on him too. The terror continued as his 2 sisters, Jael and Angelina, became his next victims. Both were awakened by the harrowing noise, only to be silenced forever by the same weapon. The plot thickened when Nehemiah, perhaps driven by unexplainable rage, lay in wait for his father's return. Greg Griego, 51, a well-known former pastor, returned to his home at about 5 a.m., entirely unaware of this tragedy. Nehemiah ambushed him, shooting him multiple times with an AR-15 type semi-automatic rifle. By this time, one would expect the horror to end, but Nehemiah's dark plans persisted. He harbored intentions of taking even more lives in a public place, ultimately envisioning a grand standoff with the police. But fate led him to his church, where he startlingly admitted to a congregation member that his family was dead. This revelation understandably raised suspicions, especially to the retired detective present. Ensuing visit to the Griego house and the gruesome scene inside confirmed their worst fears. In the aftermath, the legal proceedings were complex. By January 2015, despite his chilling confession, Nehemiah was initially viewed as a minor in the law's eyes. October 2015, and Nehemiah had a change of heart. He decided to plead guilty to several charges, but that didn't make things any less complicated for the courts. They were scratching their heads on how to sentence him. You see, there was a big debate. Should they treat him like a kid because he was pretty young when he did those terrible things, or should they throw the book at him because of the seriousness of his actions? This back and forth went on for a while, until 2019 rolled around, and a decision was made. They went with the adult sentencing route, and Nehemiah got hit with 3 concurrent life sentences. And just to add some extra weight to it, they tossed in an extra 7 years for good measure. That's how the judicial hammer came down on this dark chapter. Factoring in his prior detention, he'll first be eligible for parole after serving 30 years. Presently, he's confined to the Lee County Correctional Center, from a boy known for his musical talents at church to a convicted murderer. Nehemiah's story remains a haunting testimony to the unpredictability of human actions. Number 7. Dimitrios Pagourtzis.
Henry, you have been charged with capital murder, and you have been charged with aggravated assault against a public servant, paying counsel. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney present.
October 12, 2000. A young man named Dimitrios Pagourtzis was born. Unfortunately, that name would later be linked to a terrible event on May 18, 2018. On that day, something awful happened at Santa Fe High School in Texas, USA. Dimitrios Pagourtzis, who was only 17 years old and also a student at the school, took the lives of 10 innocent people. On that fateful morning at Santa Fe High School, everything seemed pretty normal up around until 7:32 a.m. That's when all hell broke loose, as gunfire suddenly erupted right in the middle of an art class. It is just heartbreaking to even imagine what the scene must have been like. Unfortunately, the horrific act by Dimitrios ended up claiming the lives of both students and teachers, and 13 more people got injured. Armed with a 12-gauge Remington 870 shotgun and a Rossi .38 caliber snub-nosed revolver, Pagourtzis unleashed terror. And if that wasn't chilling enough, he also brought with him explosives, including a Molotov cocktail. The assault lasted nearly 25 minutes, and during this terrifying span, the real-life heroes were the brave students and staff who made split-second decisions that saved lives. Dimitrios displayed warning signs on social media before the attack. He posted pictures of a t-shirt saying "Born to Kill" and images of a jacket with a Nazi Iron Cross on Facebook. This raised questions about whether there were indicators to his intentions.
Before the shooting, Pagourtzis posted these images on social media: a "Born to Kill" t-shirt, a gun and a knife, and a long green coat.
A journal found on his computer and phone suggested he'd been planning this attack and intended to commit suicide afterward. However, he surrendered to the police, stating he didn't shoot the students he liked so he could have his story told. Can you believe this?
Suspect surrendered, allegedly telling police he did not shoot students he did like so he could have his story told.
He was charged with the capital murder of multiple people and aggravated assault against a police officer. Now, because he was a minor, he couldn't be subjected to the death penalty or life without parole. If he was convicted of capital murder, the harshest punishment he could face would be life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. On top of that, the aggravated assault charge could potentially add another 5 to 99 years or 30 years to life to his sentence. It is quite a complex legal situation, but it's important to see justice served in cases like this. Due to heavy media attention, his defense sought to move the trial out of Galveston County. The request was granted in February 2019 without specifying the new venue. By April 2019, he faced 11 federal charges, and by June, it was decided that the state trial would occur in Richmond in January 2020. Yet twists and turns ensued. November 19th, experts deemed Pagourtzis unfit for trial. He remained at North Texas State Hospital, and by March 2020, he was still considered unfit. Further assessments in February 2022 upheld this decision, extending his stay in the mental hospital. Number 6. T.J. Lane.
There really is nowhere to go after you just killed people or possibly killed people. Just didn't want to do it.
February 27th, 2012. Chardon High School was rocked by a shocking and tragic event. 6 innocent students suddenly became headlines when they were targeted in a merciless shooting. 3 lives were lost, 2 students were injured, and 1 faced permanent paralysis. The person responsible? A 17-year-old former student, Thomas Michael T.J. Lane III. By nightfall, authorities were on high alert. They had caught the shooter. This guy wasn't attending Chardon at the time. Instead, he was enrolled at Lake Academy Alternative School. Armed with a .22 caliber handgun, he unleashed terror and was found close to his vehicle, parked just outside the school. After his apprehension, the legal process moved quickly. Lane faced a slew of serious charges, 3 for aggravated murder and a couple more for attempted murder. Given his age, there was that big dilemma. Should he be tried as a juvenile or adult? Finally, May 2012, a hearing affirmed he was competent for trial and would face the courtroom as an adult.
As soon as TJ Lane walked in, he was executing his plan, taking off his button-down shirt to reveal this, a white t-shirt with the word killer scribbled on it.
Lane admitted his guilt for all the charges. March 19, 2013, he received 3 consecutive life sentences with no chance of ever getting out of prison. But here's something. During his sentencing, Lane smirked at the devastated families, showing no remorse whatsoever. It was a shocking moment still lingering in memory.
Parents of the victims called Lane a monster, wished him a slow, torturous death. Bateman's Lane just smiled, and at one point even raised his middle finger to victims' families.
February 29, 2012 brought to light troubling details. As records were examined more closely, December 2009, Lane had been in handcuffs twice. In one startling incident, he aided an assault on his own uncle. In another, he was the aggressor, striking another boy. And the story doesn't stop there. September 11, 2014, Lane attempted to escape from Allen Correctional Institution in Lima, Ohio, along with 2 other inmates. However, that escape was short-lived. He was captured and put back into custody the very next day. To enhance security, all 3 inmates were quickly moved to Ohio State Penitentiary, a more secure facility. Number 5. James Fairweather.
Like that. I was in first there. I've done it a few times. While I was doing that, my voices were laughing and laughing and laughing louder and louder.
This story centers on a teenager born in 1999 who, at just 15 years old, became one of the UK's youngest convicted felons. From the outset, his life was in disarray. He had difficulties with academics, with unrecognized dyslexia making the situation worse. 2012, the demise of his grandmother further caused him to become unstable. And trust me, that was merely the beginning of a terrible series of events. March 29, 2014, Castle Park transitioned into an environment ripped from the pages of a scary thriller. Fairweather viciously assaulted James Atfield, a father of 5, with previous brain injuries from a vehicular collision. The violence became much worse and more extreme than anyone could have imagined. Atfield suffered over 100 stab wounds. Try to fathom this. His extremities bore multiple injuries, a distinct indication of a struggle for survival. Everybody in the local area was deeply disturbed and alarmed. Guess what? Fairweather had more in store. June 17th. A few months later, he launched another assault. This occasion, the target was Nahid Almania, a 31-year-old Saudi national studying at the University of Essex. He didn't just stab her, he went to horrifying lengths. He stabbed her in the eyes, claiming it was to prevent her from witnessing evil. What about Colchester? The town was in chaos. The people were worried and anxious. They were cutting down bushes to get rid of hiding spots for attackers. Law enforcement was diligently working, interviewing all, including Fairweather himself. Yet the terror didn't cease until May 27, 2015. Someone walking their dog noticed something strange, so they called the police, and they quickly arrived to investigate. They discovered him in possession of rubber-handled gloves and a blade. Indeed, his downfall was imminent. January, Fairweather devised a clever tactic as his trial approached. He denied the murder charges, asked for a reduced charge of manslaughter, and claimed that he was mentally impaired. However, forensic psychiatrists dismissed his claim, declaring he wasn't as delusional as he alleged. April 29, 2016, the final verdict was delivered. They sentenced him to life in prison, and he must stay there for at least 27 years. Number 4. Barry Lukatis.
I did is weak and was evil and senseless. Did to your son. It doesn't replace what has been taken from you. And you should have it back.
February 2nd, 1996, Barry Lukatis, a 14-year-old in 8th grade, entered his algebra class at Frontier Junior High School, carrying a rifle and 2 handguns. He mercilessly shot and killed his algebra teacher, Leona Karras, and 2 of his classmates, Manuel Vela Jr. and Arnold Fritz. Barry's home life was turbulent, with his parents going through a divorce yet still living under the same roof. This situation created significant emotional upheaval for the young teenager. Furthermore, at school, Barry endured mockery from his peers due to his family's issues, his strong focus on school, and his unique cowboy-style clothing. As time went on, Barry's declining mental state became apparent. He developed a keen interest in the novel Rage, which chronicles the story of a high school senior who shoots his algebra teacher, a narrative similar to Barry's eventual actions. He also watched Pearl Jam's Jeremy video, which portrays a neglected teen making a heartbreaking decision in front of his classmates. And as if that wasn't enough, he appeared fascinated with films like Natural Born Killers, drawing inspiration from real-life criminal events. To add to this sad story, Barry had access to guns. His dad, Terry Lukatis, had 3 of them, and he had shown Barry how to use them. However, due to concerns about Barry's mother, Joanne, Terry hid the guns in his vehicle. Later on, Joanne found one of the guns and started carrying it around, which made Terry even more worried. The other 2 guns vanished mysteriously. Terry suspected that Joanne might have taken them, but never considered his son as a potential culprit. He remained oblivious to the struggles Barry was facing, from the bullying he endured at school to the disturbing stories he wrote in his English class. On the morning of the tragedy, after his parents left the house, Barry took his father's guns and embarked on the ominous journey to school. He entered through a back entrance. Then he went to his classroom, where this frightening incident happened. After shooting 3 people, he echoed a line from Rage, declaring,
"This sure beats algebra."
Thankfully, a gym coach named Jonathan Lane subdued him, preventing further damage. In a courtroom, Barry Lukatis is judged for what he did. Initially, in 1997, he was sentenced to 2 life terms plus 205 years without the possibility of parole. However, in 2017, this sentence was revised to 189 years.
Lukatis then agreed with prosecutors about what his sentence should be.
Justice, and it was because I was stupid, and because I was pathetic, and because I was weak.
Number 3. Brenda Spencer.
What I can figure out is basically I was just shooting at the commando types that I saw. I didn't realize that there was people back there behind that.
January 29th, 1979. A terrible event occurred at Grover Cleveland Elementary School. A 16-year-old girl named Brenda Ann Spencer, who had bright red hair, opened fire on the school from her home across the street. Brenda used a rifle, a Christmas gift from her father, to shoot at the students and staff. It's hard to believe something like this could happen. Her first target was Cam Miller, who was wearing blue, which was Brenda's favorite color. Principal Burton Ragg, 53, and custodian Mike Sucher, 56, tried to protect the children but tragically lost their lives. Teacher Daryl Barnes also tried to help and got caught in the shooting. When Brenda finally stopped firing, 8 children were hurt and 2 adults had died. Brenda then locked herself inside her house. After the incident, Brenda had to deal with serious legal consequences. She was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and carrying a firearm on school premises. But what caused such a tragic series of events? Born April 3, 1962, Brenda's early life was filled with difficulties. Growing up with her father, Wallace Spencer, who had issues with alcohol, was challenging for her. She had a troubled relationship with the police, and sometimes had violent thoughts. Her disinterest in school and a brain injury may have played a role in her behavior. 1978, Brenda's behavior had become even more concerning. She was sent to a facility for missing school, and it was discovered that she was feeling suicidal. At Grover Cleveland Elementary in the same year, she was arrested for shooting at windows with a BB gun and for burglary. These incidents may have been cries for help that went unnoticed. In December of that year, a crucial psychiatric evaluation recommended that Brenda be hospitalized for her depression. However, her father didn't follow this advice. Instead, he gave her a rifle as a gift. It's hard to understand why someone would make that choice. April 4th, 1980, just one day after her 18th birthday, Brenda was given a severe punishment for her terrible actions. She was sentenced as an adult and received a prison term of 25 years to life. While in prison, Brenda faced challenges like epilepsy and depression. Even though she became eligible for parole in 1993, she's never been granted release. Her next chance for parole will be in 2025. Number 2. Robert and Michael Beaver.
Tracking your family?
Yes.
Who is it?
July 22, 2015. It was around 11:30 p.m. in the usually peaceful town of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, when the police received a 911 call from Daniel Beaver. He reported that his brother was attacking their family, and little did anyone know the horror that awaited them at 709 Magnolia Court. The two brothers, Robert and Michael Beaver, turned their family home into a nightmarish scene of violence. Armed with knives and a hatchet, they carried out a meticulously planned attack on their own family members. Autopsies revealed the extent of the violence, with the father David suffering at least 28 wounds, and their mother April enduring over 48 wounds. Even Daniel, Christopher, and Victoria weren't spared, with each of them receiving 21, 22, and 23 stab wounds, respectively. In the midst of this gruesome chaos, only two siblings survived. Crystal miraculously survived, despite having her throat slit and stab wounds on her stomach and arms, while Autumn was found unharmed. The sheer methodical nature of the violence was underscored by the discovery of various bladed weapons, including knives and hatchets, as well as protective gear at the scene. Even more disturbing is that the brothers had apparently planned this horrifying act well in advance. One of them even mentioned that plans for the killings were stored on a flash drive inside their home, and it was later revealed that they had intended to film the aftermath of their deeds. Their sick ambitions went further, as they hoped for a larger massacre that could rival the infamous '99 Columbine High School tragedy. Authorities also investigated a shipment of boxes containing 3,000 rounds of ammunition, believed to have been delivered on July 23rd. In the aftermath, the brothers were brought to court, with Robert Beaver eventually pleading guilty to all counts and receiving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Michael Beaver's trial began in April 2018 and ended with him being sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences plus 28 years with the possibility of parole. Currently, Robert is incarcerated at the Joseph Harp Correctional Center, and Michael is at the Lexington Correctional Center, both in Lexington, Oklahoma. The people in Broken Arrow, after all that damage, try to get better and feel good again. They had plans to turn the Beaver family home into the Beaver Family First Responders Memorial Park, but sadly it burned down on March 18, 2017. March 27, 2019, the community's strong and united spirit kept going. They dedicated Reflection Park to show how strong they were and to remember what happened. And number 1, Nicholas Cruz.
This morning, chilling images and 911 calls from the Parkland massacre. 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz seen here loading an AR-15 in the hallway of Stoneman Douglas High School.
February 14, 2018. Nicholas Jacob Cruz, 19, entered Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, carrying a duffel bag and backpack with a semi-auto rifle and ammunition. He arrived via Uber at 2:19 p.m., pulled the fire alarm at 2:21, and began shooting at 2:30. targeting rooms 12, 15, 16, 14, and 13 on the first floor and one classroom 1231 on the second floor. He then discarded his rifle and backpack, blended in with the fleeing students, and exited the building. The result was devastating. 17 lives lost and 17 others injured. Nicholas Cruz's early life was very difficult. His biological mother, Brenda Norma Woodward, had a history of violence and drug addiction. Later on, he was adopted by Roger and Linda Cruz, but sadly, both of his adoptive parents passed away, leaving him without a family just a few months before the shooting. Despite facing personal challenges, Cruz showed promise in school, especially in the Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, or JROTC. He did well academically in JROTC and other subjects, and he was even a member of the varsity air rifle team. However, it is puzzling how someone with so much potential could also have such a dark side. This darker aspect to his personality was evident in his disturbing social media posts, where he expressed racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, and xenophobic views. There were red flags long before that tragic day. The local sheriff's office had received many calls about Cruz's behavior over the years, and there were alarming messages online, like a comment on YouTube where a user named Nicholas Cruz claimed intentions to become a professional school shooter. Even the FBI was alerted, yet there were significant missteps and communication breakdowns that allowed this to happen. Cruz's struggles with school academics also signaled trouble, as his grades at Stoneman Douglas dropped. Specialists suggested he transfer to Cross Creek School. He initially refused, but eventually sought the transfer as his grades worsened. It makes you wonder, was it too late by then? October 20th, 2021. Facing 17 counts of premeditated first-degree murder and 17 counts of attempted first-degree murder, Cruz confessed and pled guilty to all charges.
I'm very sorry for what I did, and I have to live with it every day. I'm sorry, and I can't even watch TV anymore.
Although the death penalty was considered, the jury couldn't decide, resulting in a sentence without the possibility of parole on November 2nd, 2022.